vanquished the demon. I vanquished the demon. Tom's gone. Tom's gone. We can all be free of the negativity. Tom's gone. Tom's gone. Driven out, driven away. I finally won. I won. I won. Tom's gone. Tom's gone. Tom's gone. I vanquished the demon. I vanquished the demon. I won. I vanquished the demon. I drove the demon out. Okay. Tom is gone. He's done. It was hard battling a demon. See, the thing is, when you're battling the negative energy, the narcissism, the ego of someone like Tom, it actually sucks energy away from you. You know, it actually took a lot of my creative powers away from me so he could thrive off them. And that's what these people do. Some people call them psychic vampires. But the good news is Tom's gone. Okay, so now we can get back to business. And what I'm doing is I'm explaining how these vintage guitars are not that great. And right now I'm talking about the 59, the 60, the 58 Les Paul. Okay. And I'm saying it's good guitar, but it ain't that great. It's not the greatest guitar ever made. It's not the holy grail. It's not. It's just not. One of the biggest things with these guitars, here, let me show you this. One of the biggest things with the guitar in terms of its sound is the pickup. Right. I mean, the electric guitar, one of the biggest components of the electric guitar sound is the pickup. You wouldn't hear it if it wasn't for the pickup. If you strum an electric guitar without the pickup, that's what you're hearing. That's what the electric guitar sounds like. It's the pickup that makes a lot of the difference. Or it's the pickup that is the vehicle to get a sound out of an electric guitar. And one of the claims with these things is the original PAF pickup. This is the greatest pickup ever made. This guy wants $11,500 for these pickups. 1960 original PAF pickups. Why? Well, because they're PAFs. Now, see, this is one of my biggest problems. Okay. Gibson never made a PAF pickup. Gibson never made a PAF pickup. There was no pickup made by Gibson in these supposed golden years that was called a PAF pickup. It didn't exist. It doesn't exist. Okay? They made a humbucking pickup. This guy right here, named Seth Lover, developed the pickup. And by the way, there were already, when he went to go apply for the patent, there was already other patents for pickups that had two coils in them. He wasn't just the only one who had the idea. Okay. But Seth Lover made what's called a humbucking pickup. A humbucking pickup, because this was the original pickup, was a single coil. And for Gibson, it was a P90, which is a single coil pickup. If you've ever played these pickups, you know there is this massive hum in these pickups. There's this 60 cycle hum in these pickups. And when you're playing electric guitar loud, boy, that can get really annoying, man. So what Seth Lover did was he just put two of them together. He put two coils together, and they canceled each other out. He just wired them so that they were like the polarity were opposite, and that canceled out the hum. Pretty simple idea. It wasn't called a PAF. It was called a humbucking pickup because it got rid of the hum. It bucked the hum. That's where you get the name humbucker, humbucking. Bye. Hum, get out of here. We don't want you. It wasn't called a PAF pickup. It was never called a PAF pickup in 57, 58, 59, 60, etc. Even going up into the early 70s. These guys right here have a show. It's a good show if you like the vintage gear. It's a great show. This is an actual 1960 Les Paul, and I think this is a 59 Les Paul. They have the actual guitars. They bought them back in the day. They bought these guitars in the 1970s. Okay. And he said he bought his for $300. This guy over here, I think his name's Pat, he said he bought his 1960 Les Paul for $300. I think he paid, I think this guy, Pat or Doug, paid a couple grand, 2,000 for his. And his is a 59. But they say, okay, they're comparing old pickups, and they say themselves that back in the 1970s, they never called these things PAFs. So we have eyewitness reports. We have reports from people who are knowledgeable saying this was never called a PAF. There was no PAF pickup in 1970. There was no PAF pickup in the 1970s. It was a humbucker. It was humbucking. It was called a humbucking pickup. You wanted a guitar with humbucking pickups in it. You didn't get a guitar with PAFs in it. And if so, it was never called a PAF pickup. Now, from what I understand, Seymour Duncan came up with this terminology. Some people forward that in the mid to late 70s, Seymour Duncan made a pickup called a PAF, and he patented the name PAF. He trademarked the name PAF to indicate that it was like those old Gibson pickups. So, you know, you want to say like late 70s, early 80s, people started throwing around this term PAF, but that's not what it is. PAF is a marketing term to market these pickups, right? And there's nothing special about these pickups. There's a guy called Dylan Talks Tone who makes pickups. He makes pickups, and he tells you straight up, there's nothing magical about these pickups, man. They're all made out of the same thing. And he actually, and this one, he lays out all the parts on the table. This is why I'm not monetized. I don't want to have all these commercials in my videos, man. This is why I'm not monetized. I'm not going to get monetized. But anyway, he lays out all the parts on the table that the pickup's made out of. And it's not magic. There's no magic to a pickup. There's no magic to a PAF pickup. This is great. This guy paid $205 for magnets. This guy paid $205 for magnets, supposedly from the 1960s, at least for 1960s Gibson magnets. How do you know that? They were in my grandpa's garage. You know, he's old. So, yeah, you know, they're probably from the 60s. Oh, okay. How much? $200. See, you got to give these vintage guys credit for being able to sell something that, you know, you find this at a yard sale or estate sale for like a quarter, you know, and all of a sudden they get $200 out of it. You know, these are old pickups. How old are they? Well, they're from the 1950s. Oh, okay. So what? They're like $20. Oh no, they're $12,000. Why? Well, because they're from the 1950s. That's all you got, man. Because the one thing on these pickups that could be not the same is the wire was wrapped in enamel and now it's poly coated. That's it. Like that's the only thing they can't recreate. They can make the same plastic butyrate or butyrate quote bobbins. They can use pole pieces that are the same. They can use everything can be the same, except the one thing is the wire was coated in enamel. And how much difference does that make? You know, Roger Mayer, who is a electronic genius, he created the Octavia for Jimi Hendrix. Somebody asked him once, well, what kind of pickups do you prefer? What kind of pickups do you like the sound of? He goes, I don't care. The pickups are relevant. As long as I'm getting a signal, that's the only thing that matters. So he was basically saying, it doesn't matter what kind of pickup you're using. If I get a good signal, we're good. Like the pickup doesn't matter. So here's an electronics genius who knows a lot about sound and making sounds and creating sounds. And he never cared what kind of pickup he was using. And he would probably laugh his ass off at somebody paying $11,499 plus shipping. Oh, no, hold on. Free shipping. You get free shipping here. For your 12 grand and free shipping. So you buy my pickups for 12 grand and we'll give you some free shipping. Now, the thing with these pickups, you can get down to the magnets, right? There's different Alnico or Alnico. People say it different ways, but you can get an Alnico 2, an Alnico 5, an Alnico, 2.5. And you know what's funny is Gibson was not real steady in which ones they use in these PAFs. So the PAF sound doesn't even exist. This quote unquote PAF tone doesn't even exist. Because even people who are selling these pickups have to admit they were wildly varied in their sound. Because Gibson would order the magnets, they'd be Alnico 2, Alnico 2, whatever you want to call it. And then they'd run out. Then they'd order the next one. And the factory would go, we don't have those anymore. We got Alnico 5s, though. And they go, okay, send those over. They didn't even care. Gibson didn't even care. The people making these things didn't care. They said, hey, bring them over here because we're making a double coil pickup. We're making a humbucking pickup. The magnet doesn't really matter. And then later, okay, see, this is the thing. These guys always start with the fact of this is the greatest pickup ever. And then work backwards. And you can't do that. When you're looking at how a pickup sounds, you can't start with, hey, this pickup's the greatest sounding pickup in the world. You can't start with that. You have to start with, I have a pickup here. Okay, I want to see if it's the greatest sounding pickup in the world. How can I do that? Then we go in and we start looking at it. Okay, well, it's an Alnico 2 magnet. Can we get those? Yeah, we can. So over here, I get Alnico 2 magnets. Well, it's got enamel wire. Can we get that? No. Okay, we can get what can we get? What can we get? We can get wire that's coated with poly. Okay, let's get that. We wire it up. How many wines does this one have? Well, approximately 5,000. Okay, we do 5,000 wines. What kind of pole pieces does it have? Well, they're steel. Okay, we put in steel pole pieces. Oh, they're adjustable. Okay, we make them adjustable. And then we listen to them. And we go, well, oh, they sound pretty close. That's the thing with these guys actually do a shootout. And I am going to take the time. I'm going to take the time to go through every one of their shootouts. They have 9 of them. And I'm going to take the audio out of every one of them. Okay. And then I'm going to take, because these guys have the real guitars. So they're one of the few people that actually compare their guitar to something else. They got a Heritage back here that they take the pickups out of and they put in. They have an R9 or something. They take the pickups and put them in. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go and I'll do this next week. For next week, I'm going to take every sound example that they have out of their 9 episodes. Okay. And then I'm going to mix in the real guitar in there. And we're going to see if anybody can hear it without the words up telling you what's what. Without the, in other words, when they do this, they put up, oh, this is a, see, here's the original one. Then they go, here's a R9 with the burst bucker in it. Right. So I'm going to take the R9 burst bucker. I'm going to take the Wiz pickups, the throwbacks, whatever, because it'll be the same guy playing up through the same amp in the same position, because he kind of goes up high and plays these licks up there. And I'm going to splice them all together. And yeah, I guarantee you ain't going to be able to tell the difference. You're not going to be able to tell the difference. They think they can tell the difference because they're sitting there playing the guitar and they go, wow, this, they love this. They have a 1957 Gold Top that they love. Oh, this one sounds so good. You ain't gonna be able to pick it out. I guarantee it. I'm going to do that for next week. And the reason why is because the PAF myth is just a myth. It's not true. Dylan says you can get the sound. You can. He's bucking. He's destroying the myths, and he's saying you can reproduce the PAF sound. You can 100% reproduce the PAF sound, and I agree with that completely. There's nothing magical about a PAF. There is no reason outside of you keeping a 1960 Les Paul original that you would ever pay $12,000 for these pickups. There's literally no reason. There's literally no reason outside of wanting to keep a guitar original that you would ever pay $12,000 for these pickups. Okay. So there was Gibson never produced a PAF pickup. Gibson never made a PAF pickup ever. It was a marketing term that was later given to a different pickup made by Seymour Duncan called the PAF. And he called it that because if you read this sticker here, it says patent applied for. And once they got the patent, they put the number on there. So the later humbucking pickups would just have patent number and then the number on it. Right. And isn't that amazing that you have a humbucking pickup, right? It has a sticker on it. And the sticker changes, and all of a sudden, well, your pickup sucks now. Your pickup's not as good. Well, what happened? They changed the sticker on it. Yeah, there's a patent office in Washington, D.C., and however long it took them to figure out if they would grant this patent, when they did that, your pickup sucked. Your pickup all of a sudden started to suck. Why is that? Because they decided in Washington, D.C., they were going to give you guys a patent. And when they gave you the patent and you put a sticker on there that had the patent number, your sound just went downhill. Your sound just crashed, man. It's horrible. It's a horrible sound. It's not as good. Why is it not as good? It's not as good because That sticker, see that sticker? That sticker says a number on it. My sticker just, it doesn't have a number on it. It just is patent applied for. So my pickups sound better than yours because the sticker on it. So don't get caught up in the hype. Don't get caught up in the bullshit of a PAF sounding better than any other pickup. And if you want to get this sound, these Seth Lover pickups, they sound great, man. These are like 200. I think they were like 275 a set. With I got gold covers on mine. They're like 275 a set, and they're unpotted. That is one thing about these old pickups is they're unpotted. So if you really want to get the true kind of PAF, you know, construction, they're not potted, and these Seth Lover pickups are not potted. Now, these tone specific pickups, which I love the sound of tone specific pickups. This guy, when I wrote him and I said, "Hey man, are your pickups potted?" He wrote back and said, "Our pickups go through we have a proprietary process where we don't pot them, but we make them quiet and they sound unpotted. They react like an unpotted pickup, but they're quiet like a potted pickup." Now that proprietary process could be Elmer's glue, it could be tape, it could be Scotch tape. I don't know, but they are very reactive and they're quiet. The thing is with the unpotted pickups is they will have a almost microphonic effect where if you tap it, if you're playing loud, you hit it, you'll hear it. If you're playing loud, you could hear a squeal there because it's a very live pickup. An unpotted pickup is a very live pickup. That's why they potted them, because they started using these high gain amps at loud volumes, and these unpotted pickups would squeal. They'll make noise. And that's another thing about these PF pickups. If they're so great, how come all these guys in the 70s who had these old guitars rip these PAFs out and put in Seymour Duncan pickups, put in Seymour Duncan Super Distortion pickups? Because the PAF it's not magical. It doesn't sound. See, this guitar right here, $70,000. Hold on a second. $77,000. And part of it is because it has the original PAF pickups in it. This is an old ES 335, but part of the reason why these guitars are commanding so much money is because the original pickups in it, and they're supposedly magical. That's why this dude wants $12,000, $11,500 for two pickups. That's what, $6,500 a piece. $6,500 for a pickup. And like I said, if you want to keep your guitar original, I get it. That's, you're going to pay a lot of money for that. But if you want the sound, of this pickup, I guarantee you can get it with a modern day pickup that's wrapped with the same construction, that's done in the same way that they constructed these pickups. When you do it in the modern day, it sounds just as good. And like I said, next week, I'm going to take all these guys shoot out. They have 9 of them. I'm going to take all of the sound clips and I'm going to string them together. Okay. And I'm going to implore anybody who believes they can pick out a real 57, a real 59 with real quote unquote supposed PAFs in it. You're going to get put to the test. Okay. All right, guys, that's it. I'll see you next time.